And sort of on that note of implicit biases, I actually wanted to take things a step a little
Mhm.
bit further and talk about white saviorism, because in the nonprofit world, there's no shortage of white do-gooders who would rather take pictures of them helping out marginalized communities so they can like share it on Instagram rather than actually help marginalized communities. And the
That's
problem
correct.
with white saviorism, it doesn't just start and stop with performative activism at your local nonprofit. Um, the white saviorism sort of mentality really is an industry, which is why a lot of activists have actually called it the white savior industrial complex, since there's just so much big money to be made trying to save animals, trying to save the kids over here in that country, trying to save the ocean over here. And so, as someone who's worked in the nonprofit world, what are your experiences with and your thoughts on white saviorism?
Man, you asked some great questions. I, I think that white saviorism is almost as dangerous as racism itself, right? Because it is a secondary erasure of people of color, right? Because um, if you've ever taken a hammer and slammed it down on something really hard, it hits really hard, but it's hitting with so much force that the hammer almost bounces again and it hits in the same spot twice, right? And so to me, white saviorism is that secondary hit. It's that when a volcano erupts, there's always these after tremors, right? And the after tremors are still spewing out lava. They're still knocking buildings down, and that is white saviorism because um, what white saviorism does is it prioritizes white people, right, and the perspective of white people over the people that were damaged by the first hammer hit, by the first eruption. And so the environment is a perfect example, right? Most of the people around the world that are currently suffering from climate change are people of color, and the people who say that they are attempting to help are the people who caused the problem in the first place, right? I have nothing against some of the preeminent people in the space that are speaking against this, but the problem is that the news media, which they allow this to happen, the Greta, for instance, and Greta has spoken on this a couple of times, but at some point, people like Greta, I think, have to say, if you're going to do an interview with me, right? You're going to do an interview with me with someone that's standing next to me from the islands, that's someone standing next to me from New Orleans. She has to use her power not just to say, you folks on the large international stage are wrong, but she has to bring people along with her because those other folks aren't going to do it. And so is there a form of white saviorism in what she's doing? Not on purpose, but the result is the same. We only see her white face talking about what's essentially brown suffrage caused by white folks. And should there be white folks like Greta that are stepping up and saying, hey, this is absolutely wrong. Yes, but you have to do it in a way that doesn't create further erasure because there are folks in New Orleans and in island nations all around the world that don't and won't get the playtime that Greta is going to get. And so her job is to elevate people of color whenever she can, in my opinion. In the animal welfare field specifically, um, it is almost a field in and of itself of white saviorism, and it was from the beginning. So animal welfare dates back to the early 1600s, by the way. Some of the first laws were sort of focused around making sure farmers were not taking the wool and the skins off of animals while they were still alive. And if you're wearing a mink, you should know that's how mink coats are made. That the animal is stripped of its fur while it's alive and screaming, because folks believe that if you kill it first, the blood drains from it and then has a way of drying out the skin. And so women's groups, wealthy women, were watching their husbands do these kinds of things, and they organized around saving those animals. The ASPCA, the leader of the ASPCA, started out um, trying to help horses who were part of horse and buggies, trying to help those horses because they lived incredibly laborious lives. So while this gentleman is helping horses unburden themselves, right? There are black men and women carrying cotton of their own weight. So if you're a black man at the time and you're like me and you weigh, somewhere in the neighborhood of 230 pounds, my job at the time would have been to carry my own weight in cotton. And so when you think about what that means, how much cotton I would have had to pick during the day to amount to 235 pounds. And mind you, 235 pounds of cotton weighs the same as 235 pounds of steel. It's still it's still my body weight in cotton. And so I think when people hear that, they think, oh, it's just cotton, but it's still your body weight. And so here you have a white man that has chosen to help horses, right? And ignore the fact that next to the horse is a man and a woman carrying their own body weight in cotton. And so much of this field comes from that place, comes from that. I mean, it's called animal welfare for a reason. We don't call it that at CARE. We call it human and animal well-being. That's because we're naming it after what we want to be a result of our work. We don't want to call it a reinforcement of the problem. The problem is that we think of it as welfare instead of what we really should be thinking of it as an attempt to create well-being. But I don't think that everyone in the space and everyone that engages in white saviorism is doing it intentionally to create erasure. I think the problem is that so often the work that needs to be done, or I'll put it this way, the work that really needs to be done is the empowerment of people that have been marginalized. And rather than empower people, rather than to give people the tools that they need and deserve, too much of white America says, no, I don't really want to put these tools in your hand. I'm going to come and I'm going to donate my time myself. I'm going to share a Facebook post. And is it well-meaning? Yes, but it doesn't apply the concept of agency. It doesn't say you don't need my help, right? Because we don't, right? What we need is for you to let go of some of your resources and some of your power so we can use it ourselves. And so white saviorism is is linked mostly to our inability to believe that people of color can actually advocate and build their own. And white saviorism allows us to say, yes, I'm a good person, but I'm also going to retain my shit, right? I'm going to keep my stuff because you can put a Black Lives Matter sign outside your door. But if I knock on your door and I say, you've got a really nice house of power here, may I come in? You might let me in, but what room do I get ultimately? Do I get the basement, right? Do I get the attic? I'm certainly not going to get the master bedroom. And so that is the problem with white saviorism is white saviorism doesn't leave space for shared power.
Wow. Wow. And I mean, even just you're talking about white saviorism being this secondary blow from the hammer, and how that oftentimes masks the fact that it's even going on.